During the last 10 plus years as a full-time landscape photographer, I've hiked over 20,000 miles with over 3 million feet of elevation gain. Hiking this many miles has led me to make endless number of mistakes that can easily be fixed without spending lots of money on the latest hiking gear. In this video, I'm going to cover the biggest mistakes beginners make and how to easily fix them without always spending more money. Let's dive in and get started. So the number one thing that I see beginners make for a mistake is they go on YouTube and they look up how to do backpacking. And there's tons of backpacking videos on YouTube of how to do different skills and techniques. And the biggest downside is you have people that make their entire living from just doing gear reviews. And it's not bad to do gear reviews. The problem is they constantly need to review new gear to make money because they make affiliate money off all the gear they review. So when you see them do reviews, all of their gear is perfectly new. So it's impossible to tell if gear works or not if it's perfectly new. I don't trust recommending gear until I've done at least 200 nights on the trail with it. And that's a lot of nights. So if you don't see somebody's gear being completely dirty and worn out, just look at a pack or anything else they have. If they're doing a review on it and it's not filthy and beat up, they probably haven't actually tested it. The other downside about people making money for doing gear reviews, like I said, I don't think it's bad to do reviews, but a lot of these people don't actually have a lot of miles under their belt. And that's something that just takes time. So the more you hike, the more you learn about hiking and backpacking and the skill sets required. The only way to get there is doing lots of miles and lots of trips. Two really good resources if you want to learn from people that have hiked a whole lot of miles, been in a whole lot of rugged terrain, and just learned from lots of failures and mistakes are the website, The Hiking Life, really good website. He's hiked over 50,000 miles. And then Andrew Skurka's website. It's just Andrew and then Skurka, S-K-U-R-K-A. He's hiked probably about the same. These guys are definitely expert knowledges. They've hiked decades more than I have, and they have a lot more miles under their belt. But I've hiked a lot. So what I can give you here are some ways to just simplify your entire life. And the number one thing is find good resources of people that review gear. And if they're constantly recommending you new gear, you don't need new gear all the time. You just need good gear to start with, and you can go from there and make a lot of good decisions off of that. So the next thing, and one of the biggest trends that I see on YouTube right now, is hiking chairs. I have no idea why you would need a hiking chair. If you're older and you're going out on a short hike and you need a chair to sit down, I completely get it. But if you're hiking a lot of miles, your body should not need a chair to sit down. You should be able to sit Indian style. And you can just get one of these little pads. It keeps your body heat up, so that's nice to use. And then just sit like this. You don't need a 1-pound hiking chair. It's gonna break. It's anything else that comes along with it. It's just gonna add weight and complexity to your system. Whenever I'm looking at backpacking and beginners, I think a lot of times they don't enjoy backpacking because their systems are so complex. They have so much going on that they're always organizing gear, looking for where things are at, and then things are breaking because they have a bunch of extra stuff they don't need. So they're always just in this clutter mode. Whereas when you have good gear to start with, you know what you need and you only have the minimal amount to stay safe and warm. You don't always have to worry about organizing, figuring out what's breaking, figuring out what's not working, and a chair is one of the biggest failure modes you can have. So just sit on the ground. People have sat on the ground for hundreds of thousands of years and they're completely fine. So the next thing I see people make as a mistake, and you can decide if this is a mistake or not for you, but is carrying bear spray, bear bells, and bear containers. Unless I'm in grizzly country, I don't carry bear spray, I don't carry bear containers for my food, I don't carry bear bells ever. And the reason is because black bears are going to be scared of you. They want to stay as far away from you as possible. And if you have a good situational awareness when you're out in the wilderness, you're going to see black bears, and all you have to do is go, hey! And they're going to scramble away as quick as possible. Just let them have their space. When you're dealing with brown bears, you have two different types of bears. You have grizzlies, which are inland brown bears. They live in the mountains and like the high tundra. And then you have brown bears, which are coastal brown bears. This is a whole different situation. Those are much more predatory animals than a black bear, and I would highly recommend carrying bear spray when you're in any of those territories. But I've never carried bear spray. It weighs more than a pound. The bear container weighs like 4 pounds. It's just really hard to pack in your bag, pack in your backpack, and it's just going to really make your hiking trip miserable. So the next thing is an air pump to blow up your air mattress. So anything that I have in my backpacking kit, it's going to be very simple. I have a mouth that's installed on the front of my head, and I can blow air out of my lungs. So you don't need one of these little pumps with a battery. It might look easier, but if you're out here in the mountains and you can hike in the mountains, your lungs are plenty capable of taking 20 to 30 seconds to blow up an air mattress. The thing about the pump is it's just extra complexity to your kit. It's an extra thing you have to buy. Every extra thing you buy means you have to work more, means less time for backpacking. So look at everything through the lens of, do I want to spend more time out here? And do I want to enjoy myself while I'm here? And I can guarantee you, if you're warm, if you have food, and you have a good shelter, and you're in shape, you're going to enjoy yourself out here. The more and more things you have as far as gadgets, the less and less you're going to enjoy yourself, because you have to keep track of all these gadgets. You have to pack them on every trip. You have to make sure they're in good condition. If they break, you have to get a new one. All this added complexity takes away from the actual good time out here. So the next thing is soap. There's no reason to use soap while you're out backpacking. Number one, it's bad for all the water and all the animals that live out here. Just use a stream or anything else and go wash off. Get in there, just when you're underwater, just scrub down. And then I use a swimming chamois. You can use this to wipe off as well. And I can just keep it, and then I can wipe my face off when I'm on the trail or anything else. These are really nice because they suck up a lot of water, unlike a regular microfiber cloth towel. It's just a chamois. I'll leave a link for it down below. But there's absolutely no reason to have soap. Maybe you'll have a little bit of body odor. The same goes for deodorant. You don't need deodorant out here. Just get used to smelling like you're out in the wild. I still get used to washing off in water once or twice a day. Even if it's cold, just hop in there for a few seconds, completely rinse off. You're not going to notice the difference if you have soap on or not. The next thing, which is a really big thing, and this really hampers people from doing a lot of miles on the trail, and it just makes their life a complete pain. If you have the ability, pack your food for the day in a small container. This is just a roll stop stuff sack, so I can easily see all my food in there. I have one food container that has all my food for the trip, and then I have one food container I pack each night with the food for the next day. I keep this on the outside of my pack. Why this is key is because you don't have to get into the main part of your pack at all during the day. I have my water on the outside, I have a few wind layers on the outside, and I have my food on the outside. That's all I need. And then I keep my sitting pad on the outside. And then when you're stopping to take a break, you can sit and relax instead of digging through the interior of your pack to find the food for the day. So this next tip's a big weight saver that's completely free. I see people carrying around these big Nalgene bottles, these big tough plastic bottles. They're completely unnecessary. They're extremely heavy. They weigh, I don't know, 6 to 8 ounces. There's no reason to carry anything that heavy. And they also don't carry that much water. So when I'm on the trail hiking, I carry this. You can just get them at any convenience store. It's just an aluminum bottle. It's 25 ounces and it weighs like 2 ounces total without water in it. So really light, really tough, and then you can get one every few trips when it wears out. Then the other water container I have is one of these Evernew water bags. This is just a 2-liter bag, and it rolls down to absolutely nothing. It weighs 1 ounce. So the total weight of my water carry system for almost 3 liters is just 3 ounces total weight. And it carries way more than a liter Nalgene bottle, which is maybe 6 to 8 ounces total weight. So get rid of the Nalgene bottle with all the stickers on it. Just go simple, go small. And then when you're hiking during the day, instead of carrying a bunch of water with you, this can actually save you like 4 to 8 pounds. I see a lot of people carrying a Camelback completely filled throughout the day. Well, if you're out in the mountains, just look at your topo map and see where the next water source is. And when you find a water source, chug a liter of water or till your stomach's completely full. And then between water sources, I only carry a sip of water in this. Unless I'm on a really long water haul where there are no water sources, then I'll fill it up. But test this out at home. Chug as much water as you can so your stomach's full, and then go out on a hike. Just carry your backpack so you have some weight on you, and see how long you can hike before you start to get thirsty. Not dehydrated thirsty, but thirsty to the point where your pee starts to go from clear to just a very light yellow. And for me, that's 8 miles. So I know that I can easily hike 8 miles, even if it's pretty hot out, without drinking water. Now, I might feel like drinking water, but I'm still fully hydrated. So check for your water sources, and then water weighs 8 pounds a gallon. So if I carry these, I'm carrying a whole lot of extra weight I don't need. That's why I just carry a sip in the bottom after I chug. And the reason I carry a sip is because if you get something stuck in your throat, maybe you're eating food and you're like, you can't get it out, it's nice to have a little bit of water that you can make sure it just doesn't stay stuck in there. And that's something I've just learned over time being on the trail. So the next thing that's a huge mistake that people make is carrying too much or too little food. If you carry too little food, you don't have any energy during the day. So you don't want to go at a calorie deficit, because if you do that and you're putting in big miles and high elevation and through a lot of elevation gain during the day, you're just going to feel sluggish after especially 3 days. I notice when I start hitting day 3 of my trip, my hunger really kicks up. Now, if you carry too much food, you're just carrying a whole bunch of extra weight you don't need. And if your body's having to process too many calories, it's actually using energy to process calories and it's not using it to hike. So it can make you tired as well. So what I do is I have a calorie tracker app and I set out my backpacking meals and I just eat the same exact meals every day of the trip. And I weigh 175 pounds. I eat 4,500 calories a day on the trip. And I come back and I'm in the exact same weight, so I don't lose muscle mass. Now, a lot of that calorie is protein. I eat about 250 grams of protein on hiking trips, which seems like a lot, but I'm never sore on hiking trips, and this makes sure your muscles fully recover. Then I fill the rest with mostly fat and small amount of carbohydrates. That's just what works really well for me. But by having every single meal be the same throughout the day, my body gets used to eating this in a cycle. And since it's eating this in a cycle every single day, I know what I'm eating every day and I can pack my pack perfectly so I don't have too many calories or too little calories. So you just pack your calories and set it up using a calorie tracking app for one day, and then you just replicate it for every day of the trip and you're all good to go. You know you have the exact amount of calories you need. The hard part can be finding how many calories you intake in a day. So you can do some experiments at home, just do some big hiking miles through day hikes and see how many calories you ingest. Now, if you're doing long trips, I'm doing a lot of trips that are like a week to 15 days. When I get in deep into that trip, I could easily eat 5,500 calories a day. But what I do is I pack myself so I'm about the middle between having a little bit too much food at the beginning of the trip and not quite enough at the end of the trip, and it kind of just balances out. So through experimentation using a calorie app, you can kind of figure out what works for you. So here's a big one that's really going to help the enjoyment of your trips, and that is not using the app Ultralight. I've gone on Ultralight before because I see everybody use it on the trail. Whenever I run into somebody, I'm like, how'd you find this place? And they're like, Ultralight. And anytime I see people, there's a lot of people there because people will look at these routes on Ultralight and they'll be like, oh, that looks cool, I'll go do it. But everybody else is doing it too. So you're going to be surrounded by people. And the other downside of Ultralight, it does not teach you to actually create your own routes. Creating big backpacking routes, big hiking routes is one of the funnest things ever. And as you get deeper and deeper into your hiking career, you can create off-trail routes, you can link on-trail and off-trail. But if you're not creating these routes on your own, you don't learn to study terrain, you don't learn what type of terrain takes which speeds to move through. For example, this terrain back here has a lot of rocks in it. If I would have just looked at a topo map or Ultralight to start with, I would have not seen all these rocks. And I know that my speed through these rocks is about 1.5 miles per hour. My speed on a trail is about 2.5 to 3 miles per hour. So if I had a day that I mapped out on my own and I was like, I'm going to do 15 miles this day, I'm usually doing 15 to 20 miles on trail. But if it was terrain like this, it would be impossible to do because I'm not moving fast enough. And if you're not designing your own routes, you're not actually looking at the terrain before you go. You're just copying a GPX from the internet, from Ultralight, and you go there and everybody else is there too. So it really ruins the solitude that you get from hiking. It also ruins the trust in yourself because when I'm designing routes, I use Gaia GPS, Gaia, and it still has all the topo maps, all these layers you can put on there for like how steep the terrain is. You can download satellite imagery, everything else. So I'll download it on Gaia first on my computer, and then I can download it on my phone as well. So I have all my maps downloaded to my phone. I actually just download the whole entire Western US topo maps on my phone. And I design it on the computer, and then I'll load that into Google Earth, and I'll study all parts of this route that I put together. And I'll look at the terrain. I'll see if it's like this, or I'll see if it's flat trail, or what's going on. And then I have an intuitive sense of how many miles I'm going to be able to do on which sections. And then you also learn, as you're hiking through a wide variety of different terrain, how fast you can move on that terrain. You'll be surprised if you look at a hike, say, along the coast or a beach. It's really hard to hike on sand and do a lot of miles every day. You'd think it'd be easy because it's flat, but it's very slow. So just learning things like this aren't things you're going to do with just copying an all-trails route and then going and copying it and just following it. It just takes away from the experience of designing the trip, getting into new locations, and getting the self-confidence for yourself from designing these trips and then going and completing them. So I'm on a 80-mile trip right now. Some of it's on trail, some of it's off trail. It's all throughout these mountains. And I just love piecing these things together, packing for it, getting all my gear ready, finding the temperature scenarios, trying to pack the perfect gear so I'm not packing too much. So I have everything on when I'm in my tent, but I'm not cold. And then dialing it each step, getting the food ready, seeing how many miles I'm going to do, and then going and completing the route that I designed. It's the best feeling in the world. and you don't get that feedback loop. You don't get that feeling. You don't get that learning experience or the solitude of being in places that nobody else comes if you just go on all trails. So that's my rant on all trails. So here's the last one. This is really going to help you guys. I'll do a complete other video on this, but it's training all year round. And training doesn't have to be hard. The best thing you can do for yourself is just go walk every day. You could load up your pack and walk, but what I like to do is I have a 25-pound weight vest. It's just one of these vests that's on Amazon. It doesn't have adjustable weight. It's just 25 pounds. And then I just go walk 8 to 10 miles a day. And what you want to do is find varied terrain if you can, but you don't need to go run. You don't need to get your heart rate up. The goal is to do a lot of work at zone 1 and 2 heart rate zones. So the top of my zone 2 is 148 beats per second. So 148 beats per minute. And you can slowly increase this zone 2 heart rate. And when you're in zone 1 and 2, you're mostly burning fat for energy. When you get to zone 3, 4, and 5, you start to shift to more and more carbohydrates. And you'll run out of energy really quick if you run at zone 3, 4, and 5 a lot. So a lot of people will train for hiking by going out and running real fast. It really doesn't do much for your endurance. You want to build this zone 1 and 2 ability to go all day long. So go out and hike. It can be walking in your neighborhood. It can be walking anywhere. Just go, walk. And a good way to keep track of the top of your zone 2, where you're going to shift from burning mostly fat to start to burn carbohydrates, is can you breathe through your nose the entire time? So just get used to breathing through your nose. You could even tape your mouth shut to force breathing through your nose. Another way to test is, can you have an ongoing conversation? If you can't have an ongoing conversation, or if you can't breathe through your nose, you're starting to get into zone 3, 4, and 5. And when you get into those zones, you start to create lactic acid. That's what makes your muscles hurt. But if you just walk and stay in zone 1 and 2, you can walk that distance every day and then just slowly build it up. And over time, over years, your endurance will build up to the point where you can come out and hike 15 or 20 miles doing 10,000 feet of gain. And you're not going to wake up sore the next day. You're going to wake up excited to hike the next day. And that's when hiking can get really enjoyable. So bite off small chunks. Just make a goal for yourself. Say, I'm going to go out, walk 3 miles every day of the week. Just go out and do one loop that's 3 miles every day. It might take you 45 minutes, an hour. And then slowly just increase that to longer and longer and longer until you're hiking or walking every day the entire year. Say whatever mileage you want to do on a regular trip. So if you want to come out and do a 50-mile trip in a week, it'd be good if you were walking 50 miles consistently every week. And then when you come out here, it's going to be a little bit harder because you're going up and down a lot more if you're out in the mountains. But your life's just going to be way better, and you're going to have way more fun on the trail. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.